backed it. Raymond Burkhart of FOP said, hey, we're behind anything that ensures our officers can get a living wage. What do you say? 504-556-9696. New Councilman Jared Brosette says it's a tough decision. We'll have to, quote, look at it carefully. The tax increase first has to be approved by statewide voters, and it would have to also be approved by Orleans Parish voters. And then had to be approved by the city council. So a multi-step process here that would be required. 504-556-9696. Steve Sabludowsky, you're going to be joining us of Bayoubuzz.com. Jeff Crouere here. It's ringside on WGSO, 990 AM, WGSO.com. Our talk line, of course, is jam-packed this morning. Lots of calls about this Taliban dream team that has been released. And we'll get into some of those discussions a little bit later. But I think we have Steve on the line with us. And Steve, how are you? Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning, Jeff, and happy Post-Louisiana Legislative Session.
Oh, okay. Well, didn't seem to be much of a session. I want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, did we have one? I'm trying to recall. No, it wasn't wasn't much to it. We're not sure what's going to happen with a number of things up in the air, as you were just talking about. Certainly, the big issue of the day is, I think, the lawsuit, and I have no idea what's going on there in terms of oil and gas lawsuit. That apparently, unless things have changed, the governor has decided not to sign because of legal concerns.
So it's sort of we don't know where it stands then, huh? That's the levy board lawsuit.
Sure, exactly. From what I can gather, it stands in the hands right now of the Attorney General, who will at least opine as to whether or not the law is actually going to impinge upon rights to recover against BP.
Of course, that's another big concern about how those dollars are going to be allocated, right? And whether those are going to be going exactly toward what we thought they were going to, or whether the government can use it really for plugging holes in the budget, et cetera.
Yeah, I plead ignorance on that because I don't know. I know there was a recent decision, a court decision that basically said, I'm sorry, BP, you have to honor the settlement. So, but in terms of what the state's going to get, or what people are going to get for their individual lawsuits, and that's something I really haven't been keeping up with.
The legislative session, of course, ending yesterday. So you think it was sort of an uneventful session? I know it was marked by a lot of absences by Governor Jindal. But as far as the highlights and the lowlights, what would you say they were?
Well, I think the highlights in terms of people involvement, okay, probably was the issue of healthcare. The Medicaid expansion, and I think that pretty much that was the major issue of the session, including, of course, this lawsuit, the levy district lawsuit. I mean, if that lawsuit is determined, or if the legislative session did not do what Jindal and the oil companies wanted the legislation to do, well, to me, I think that it really underscores. I mean, that is just a real black mark on the Jindal administration. I mean, that was a number one thing that that he was interested in, as well as the Obamacare, Medicaid. issue, and apparently Common Core became somewhat important.
Well, I think Common Core was maybe the issue of the session, and at least in the beginning. There's a lot of commentary about Common Core, and then now the governor's threatening to veto a bill the legislature passed endorsing Common Core.
Yeah. I think that in terms of just involvement, emotionalities, and all, I think that, I would put at least, I would put the Medicaid expansion as well as the overall importance. I think that healthcare is a major issue at this point in time, not only because we're talking about people without health care and the personal cost to them, the cost to the state ultimately, and to all of our institutions, including the hospitals. But
it was voted down.
Yeah.
Overwhelmingly. As was the opposition to Common Core. So you had advocates on both sides of those issues, very passionate, but they didn't sway the legislature.
No, and again, I'm not saying, what I am saying is that I think that, in my view, that was the most passionate issue, and for me also, I think that was the most important issue, in terms of my opinion, as to the legislature.
What about how they dealt with the budget and how they used one-time money? Does that concern you?
Well, it concerns me as much as it has every year the general administration. It's the same old. Why should that concern us? It's like Alfred E. Newman. What me worry?
Yeah. Okay. I worry about things like that. I guess I'm strange. I don't know.
I'm being facetious now, of course. No, of course it's an issue, and it's unresolved. Again, we do have a question about the payment of Medicaid, to those people who, or at least payment of health care. We don't know what's going to happen. We really don't know what's going to happen. The state hasn't gotten the approval unless it's done under, without my noticing, and so the whole healthcare issue is up
All
in
right,
the air.
let's do this. We're going to take a brief time out. We'll come back with more. Our guest is Steve Sabludowsky. Ringside All-Star joins us on Tuesdays. You can check us out at Bayoubuzz.com with a Google Hangout. Listen in at WGSO.com, 990 AM. Our talk line, 504-556-9696. Take care of some business. We'll be right back.
Mr. Red's Seafood and Italian Restaurant, serving the best fried chicken in town, fresh Louisiana seafood, as well as delicious Italian dishes. Try our daily chef specials.
Hey, Steve, anything else you want to bring up?
Whatever. We are live right now, just to let you know. So, anybody watching on Bayou Buzz, but, tell me what you might want to talk about.
No, I think legislative session, and I think we can go off from there, and we'll squeeze in some calls. Okay?
Sure, absolutely.
I think that's probably the bigger story.
Way to talk about a very serious subject. He wrote, "Familiarity breeds contempt, and it also breeds children." Just think about the number of children born into this world, and those who were never born, because teenagers and adults failed to establish boundaries in their lives. Boundaries are not to limit us, they are to protect us and others. And yes, we need limits in life. All things are possible, Paul wrote, but not all things are beneficial. If you sense a need for boundaries in your life, establish them today, before it's too late. This is David Jeremiah, encouraging you to get on the road to new life. Discover God's boundaries on Route 66.
Route 66, driving the word home. Log on to Route66Life.com. Start your journey home today.
Super Discount Store in Chalmette has the lowest prices on cold beer in Greater New Orleans. Super Discount Store in Chalmette has the lowest prices on cold beer in Greater New Orleans. Super Discount Store in Chalmette, 3235 Paris Road. Super Discount Store in Chalmette, 3235 Paris Road. Super Discount Store in Chalmette.
The Mediterranean diet is all the rage. Lebanon's Cafe invented the Mediterranean diet. Lebanon's Cafe on Carrollton at Jeanette in the Carrollton section of Uptown. Lebanon's Cafe.
You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make a jackass drink. If you're thirsty to feed us your opinion, Ringside Politics for the Punch is hungry to hear from you. Give Jeff Crouere a call now at 556-9696.
And welcome back. Steve Sabludowsky is with us, publisher of Bayoubuzz.com. Jeff Crouere here, talk line 504-556-9696, talking about the wrap-up of the legislative session. From the lawsuit against oil and gas companies to the Orleans Parish tax proposal to the BP payments to the Medicaid expansion, Common Core, use of one-time money in the budget, just some of the issues we're looking at. Let's go to the phone lines, Steve, and we welcome our friend Jim from Uptown. What's going on, Jim? Good morning.
Good morning. Steve, my big concern right now, I guess, is how much this mayor is going to try to manipulate and add taxes to take care of the police problem we have. And, it's always interesting how they bury things as well. When I say bury, they'll say, well, let's put police and firemen together to create this tax. Like, put us in the crisis mode, tell us that this has got to be something we really, really need. And then my question gets back to, well, how come we've had more money for the police and firemen now because all these special events throw into the coffers, all kinds of things. The budget's never really gone down for that. And now he's going to try to slip in more taxes. And this is what somebody else has been predicting. That's kind of a political forecaster, that Landry was going to push us to a point that we were going to beg to have a tax to pay for additional police and fire. Well, and it's going to say, and fire, when we don't need any more additional firemen. We've got enough of those already.
Well, according to the IG, we've got enough police officers, believe it or not. He just says they're not deployed properly.
Yeah, enough for what?
Mm-hmm.
To have one of the highest crime rates. And again, I don't care what the crime rate is in Detroit.
Right.
I care about what the crime rate is in New Orleans.
Right.
And that's my difference. But I'm just wondering, how much more are we going to go with continually taxing? We have taxed out the middle class.
Well, is it fair for people that are not property owners to vote on a tax that's going to impact just property owners?
Well, let's tax the nonprofit property.
Mm-hmm.
Because, or what we'll say is, if you don't pay tax, then you don't get police and fire services. I mean, we got to pay for services. If we want to somehow say, well, you don't have to pay property tax on nonprofit property, mm-hmm. For such and such a purpose. Now look at, here's a good example. The Ursuline Convent downtown does not pay property tax, but they sell parking spaces. They're in the property rental business. How come they're not paying property tax? That's where the police chief lived for free.
Yeah.
He claimed he paid rent. If he paid rent, let's see how to share property tax.
They've never paid property tax, have they?
No.
Yeah. Never have. Okay. Jim, as always, interesting comments. Steve, your thoughts? I mean, are we socking it to the taxpayers too much? Is this part of a plan where things are going to get so desperate here in New Orleans, people are going to be saying, all right, relenting, agreeing to higher taxes? Is that the answer?
Well, the thing is, it does cost to live in a city. I mean, that's the bottom line. It costs, and there's always a complaint about police protection and a lack of. It takes money. The police, as I understand, Burkhardt is saying that anything that's going to help raise money for them. I can't say that I really know the answer to this. Let's see what the city council does.
Well, it's got to be approved by statewide voters first.
Please forgive me. I thought that it's a constitutional amendment.
Yeah, I think it's got to be approved by statewide voters, got to be approved by Orleans voters, and got to be approved by the city council. So it's got to go through multiple steps. But maybe statewide voters would say, hey, if the people in New Orleans want it, let them decide and sign off to it.
I mean, I think that it'd be crazy for the state not, to allow the city to be able to determine its own destiny. I mean, we're here. We're dealing with the crime situation, traffic, streets, and so on. And I mean, I think anybody who's in favor of states' rights would be in favor of city rights. I don't see where the boundary line is. Now, that doesn't mean that we should raise taxes. I think we should have a debate. And I understand where Jimmy's coming from, but I haven't looked at the budget. Has those people who are opposed to taxes, have they looked at the budget? Do they know where to raise the money?
Well, I think I looked at some salary increases for Key Landry staffers and wondering why, in a time of lean fiscal times, we're giving big salary boosts to certain officials in the administration.
Yeah, but and I agree. Look, don't get me wrong. I think that any kind of salary increase for any government official at this point in time, whether it's a local, state, federal, I just don't see it. That being the case, how much is that going to raise? A couple $100,000, maybe $1 million if you were to, deduct that, take it away. How much is it going to raise?
$1 million here, $1 million there adds up.
Yeah, but that's not enough, Jeff. We all know that's far from being enough. So again, my question is, let's have at least my point is, let's have a debate. My question is, what do you want to cut?
I think we can cut that. Certainly, any kind of. I think there should be a freeze on salaries. I think we should get rid of the deputy mayors. That's probably about $1 million and change right there. Okay. So it adds up to a few million, and then you start reallocating that toward emergency services, and then you look at what the IG just pointed out with the police, whereby you've got all these folks shuffling papers and not out on the streets, and possibly you could save money there as far as top-heavy bureaucracy. I think some things could be done other than just always going back to the property owners, always going back to taxes is the answer. That's just so liberal. Just throw more money at it. That's just constantly what they say. Tax here, tax there, tax everywhere.
Look, and tax behind a tree too. But the thing is, I understand. Look, I totally agree. I do think it does trickle down to the renters. However, for the most part, you can always raise the rent if you have a situation where it's a landlord market. So I think that again, I'm not a master here. You tell me where to cut, and you can point to the Inspector General's report, which of course the superintendent disagrees with.
Of course, of course.
I understand that, but how much? Okay, so let's assume that we throw in all the stuff that you're talking about. How much is going to be left? And what about the court order judgments and all? Where is the money going to come from? Again, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, okay, well, let's put the pen to paper and tell me how much does it add up to? Okay, before just saying, oh, well, it's a liberal thing and the liberals want this. Okay, come on, tell me. How much is it?
But in the past, increasing taxes, has that solved the problem? I mean, we've got a history of doing that over the years where property taxes have gone up in New Orleans to solve this and that problem. No, and has that solved the problems? I mean, so we've done that before. I mean, it doesn't seem like that's ever the answer because we'll always just need more money back a few years later. They're talking about increasing it more. So why don't we look at other options as opposed to just constantly going back to the tax option?
Again, I'm not going to disagree with you. I think that has it solved the problem? I mean, we have a plethora of problems. You know, probably a zillion just today alone. And how much of the money that that we're spending solves some of those problems? Yeah. All the problems? Absolutely not. It's not going to. Never, ever in any kind of government. But what's the solution? My question is, what do you cut, and and how much does that save? And that's, I think, what the issue is.
Okay. Let's take a few calls here, Steve. Let's go to Chris, who's with us on the North Shore. How you doing, Chris? Good morning.
Doing fine. Hey, thanks for a good segment here. But I mean, I have a few ideas, and maybe these, may be out of line, but, raising taxes never works. It causes a death spiral. New Orleans is doing pretty good right now, but you continue to raise taxes, you're going to kill the goose. But some of the things I came up with, I mean, we're building a new hospital in New Orleans East. Building and running, from my understanding. Where's that money coming from, and why are we spending it? What about all the pensions we have and all the city workers we have? I saw city trucks, mowing, what do you call it, easements or neutral ground. Why do we employ, grass cutters in the city and the pensions and the benefits that come along with it? The bottom line is the only way this city needs radical reform and surgery, and putting Band-Aids on it in the form of new taxes is not going to help.
I have to just say bravo. Kudos. I agree. I think that's what we're looking at, Steve. One Band-Aid after another, one tax increase after another. I think he hit the nail on the head. Radical reform. I don't see that kind of re-engineering going on of city government.
Well, again, I don't want to be too repetitive, but, all these ideas are good ideas. I think he raises a good point about paying to cut the neutral grounds. Although I got to tell you, after driving down City Park Avenue, it was an eyesore.
All right, hold that thought, Steve. Hold that thought. We want to come back. One more segment. Steve Sabludowsky with us. Jeff Crouere here. Quick time out on Ringside.
The Three Tailgaters Show with Ken, Ed, and Archie on WGSO 990 AM, New Orleans.
Hey, Steve, can you do one more segment?
Yeah, and by the way, give me a call later on. I want to talk to you, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Poland stands shoulder to shoulder for freedom. NBC's Chuck Todd says the president in Warsaw on the first leg of his European tour.
It was determined that coming to Poland was the right way for the president to reassure all of Europe, but particularly the rest of Eastern Europe, that the United States would be there and to be willing to stand up to Russian aggression.
Hall of Famer Dan Marino, the latest star to join the concussion lawsuit against the National Football League. NBC's Tamron Hall.
The issues of concussions continues to plague the league. There are at least 300 other lawsuits claiming similar negligence by the NFL.
Stats just out showed GM sales up 13% in May despite the recall crisis. Sales of the Chevy Corvette more than tripled. Chrysler sales up 17% last month. And look who's playing hooky. A new study says teachers in America's largest school districts miss an average 11 days of the school year. 16% are absent 18 days or more. This is NBC News Radio. Primary voters in 8 states go to the polls today, including a Republican face-off in Mississippi that pits 6th-term Senator Thad Cochran against Tea Party favorite Chris McDaniel. Panera says it's going all natural, removing all food additives from the menu. And as CNBC's Bertha Coombs reports, it's also working to give high-fructose corn syrup the heave-ho.
The Bakery Cafe, which has about 1,800 U.S. locations, plans to remove artificial colors, flavors, and preservatives from its menu by 2016. And it comes as the chain faces slowing sales growth.
Apple is showing off its new iOS 8 operating system, calling it a giant release that will seamlessly integrate with iCloud.
The slick new software and services will be available this fall. And running a marathon is an old story for North Carolina's Harriet Thompson. At 91, she not only runs them, she sets the record. 7 hours, 7 minutes, 42 seconds at San Diego's Rock and Roll Marathon. Says Harriet, you are never too old. I'm Dirk Van, NBC News Radio.
I'm Murphy, a service tech at a Quick Lane Tire and Auto Center.
I need help.
They always do.
I'm overdue for an oil change.
No problem.
Tire rotation?
Got it.
Top off the fluid?
Yep.
Check the battery and filters?
Roger.
The sprocket lockets?
No such thing.
Seeing if you're listening.
I haven't stopped.
Now, today's Saturday, and I don't have an appointment.
Now you do.
Cool.
Very cool.
No appointment necessary. Weekend hours and trained techs ready to give your car the works. Quick Lane is ready to serve. Visit quicklane.com.
We help farmers make the best use of their land, which means healthier crops, higher yields, and less harvesting hours, which is good news for a growing population and good news for the environment. BASF, the chemical company.
Wall Street has paused after a string of record highs. Strategists at Rockwell Global Capital tell the Wall Street Journal that it's time for the stock market to take a rest. The price of your morning pick-me-up is rising. Smucker's is hiking the price of Folgers, Dunkin' Donuts, and other packaged coffee brands by 9%. The battle is heating up for the maker of Hillshire Meats and Ballpark Franks. Chicken producer Pilgrim's Pride has upped its unsolicited bid for Hillshire brands to $55 a share, beating the latest offer from Tyson Foods. Hillshire announced this morning it will sit down with both companies while continuing with its agreement to acquire Pinnacle Foods. The CEOs of major banks are really bringing home the bacon. According to a survey compiled for the Financial Times, banking executives were awarded pay increases of 10% last year, getting an average of $13 million. On Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrial Average off 40 points, the NASDAQ down 8, the S&P down 3.5. I'm Ann Cates at MarketWatch.com.
Police called and broke the bad news to Charles. His personal and financial...
All right, Jeff Crouere here. One more segment with our special guest, Ringside All-Star, who joins us on Tuesdays. Publisher Bayoubuzz.com. His name's Steve Sabludowsky. We're joined via Google Hangout on Bayoubuzz.com and also WGSO.com. You can listen in. 990 AM as well. To join the conversation, 504-556-9696. Open line, talking about the legislative session and a whole lot more. Want to hear from you. And Steve, any comments before we take some more calls?
Yeah, actually a plug, if I might. And that is that yesterday, some of my friends and associates around the world actually had a webcast on Bayoubuzz using Google Hangout technology, and we interviewed Miss USA, just a delightful lady. As you know, the Miss USA pageant is in Baton Rouge. You'll see Donald Trump there, I'm assuming, and so please call us. Check out Bayoubuzz. Check out the interview. This is extraordinary technology. Technology we're using right now. So that's the end of the plug. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, that's great. See, you get to hobnob with the most beautiful women in the world. How about that, Steve?
Yeah, virtually, absolutely.
Right. Hey, it's better than not hobnobbing at all. So there you go.
Actually, my wife is beautiful, so that's not virtual.
There you go. There you go. And she's very understanding, isn't she, for you to be able to do a video chat with Miss USA. And that's great. What a boost for Baton Rouge, huh? To be hosting this. That's something that I think we need to talk about a little bit. That's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. From Las Vegas to Baton Rouge. And basically what Aaron Brady
That's
said,
the route Edwin Edwards took many times. Right?
That's right. And we'll probably, maybe Miss China will, Miss Lee will win. But, I don't know. I mean, Las Vegas and Baton Rouge, I think is an extraordinary sales job by the people up there in Baton Rouge. BRAC is the Economic Development Council, and I mean they did that's a terrific job. And to the extent that the governor's office chipped in and helped out, Steve, I think that's great. I did ask the Miss USA about that, and she said that that they have enjoyed every minute of it. That basically that they get more sleep there in Baton Rouge than in Las Vegas because everything's open till 24 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if they were in New Orleans, that's a different story. Obviously.
Obviously.
Their sleep would be impaired big time, probably. All right, 504-556-9696. Steve Sabludowsky with us, Jeff Crouere here. Back to the phone line, Steve, the man who needs no introduction on this talk show, well-known commentator, frequent guest, the flaming liberal David Bellinger, calling in from Hotlanta. Hey, David, good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you, gentlemen. I have to divert from what I plan to discuss, but if people go to the flamingliberal.blogspot.com, they will see what would have been my plan had it not been for Katrina to run to be mayor of New Orleans, but I was forced to relocate to Atlanta and had to give up my campaign. But as a blind man with a vision, I think spending money to build a new terminal at the airport on an airport that's not adequate enough to serve the needs of the region, New Orleans should be building a regional airport, and I would have either sold or leased the airport, requested a waiver from the federal government to reinvest in the economic activity of New Orleans, and I would have used that money to establish a fund to give tax rebates to businesses in New Orleans to hire Orleans residents to encourage people to come back to the city. It would be an incentive, a tax break for businesses to hire residents, expand the tax base, and that's how the city could raise revenue. New Orleans is already overtaxed to the point that it's really causing people. The more taxes you raise, the more people will flee the city and the less income you're going to have. So, but unfortunately, the politicians are out probably to give contracts at the new terminal, which is a waste of money, to their pals and friends and donors. And it's nothing but good old New Orleans politics at its worst. And it's really sad.
Flaming liberal.
I love so much.
I want to commend you for your plan. I mean,
well, it's a great plan.
Wow.
I think it could have been enacted. But the reason I was going to run for mayor is I couldn't get a city council person, I think except for one lady or the mayor, to return a phone call. So I was going to run And I tried to discuss my plan when I was a guest on the panel at Politics with a Punch, but Jackie Clarkson kept shouting me down, saying it was a residency requirement when it had nothing to do with residency requirement. It was totally voluntary, a voluntary program.
Yeah. Well, you should have been calling the Dallas number for Ray Nagin. That's probably why you couldn't get hold of him.
But, Jeff, real quick, if I may,
yes.
the Obamacare bashers might want to pop a Xanax, because I sent you an article the other day before my router went out. The Rand Paul, the sweetheart of the Tea Party people, evidently is reconsidering the merits of Obamacare, as Mitch McConnell is doing. And unfortunately, and I want to praise some Republicans in the House of Representatives who voted for a bipartisan bill to fund a program that would increase background checks, so maybe, just maybe, we could have less horrible gun tragedies in this country. But every Republican from the state of Louisiana, like Steve Scalise and Cassidy, voted against the bill. But I'm glad to say the Democrat voted for it. But the Republicans, I guess, cannot get enough blood from gun tragedies. And I really think people like Steve Scalise and Cassidy need to search their souls, because if they're not the answer, they're the problem.
The Flaming Liberal. Interesting comments by the Flaming Liberal. As far as his comments about the Louisiana Legislative Delegation, I do want to touch on that for a second, Steve, get your thoughts. He mentioned Bill Cassidy, and Bill Cassidy just got a boost recently, I think. We'll get your thoughts with the endorsement from the state Republican Party. And obviously, I think the powers that be, the establishment, the folks who are influential in Louisiana Republican politics have decided on Cassidy. Your thoughts?
You know, I did see that, and I was wondering about that. I didn't have a chance to really read up about it. Let me ask you a question. I do recall when David Duke was running against Ben Baggert, and of course there was also for U.S. Senate, and I'm just wondering what happened to the conventions. What happened to the Republican convention? I think you were executive director around that time, and maybe you can provide more information to me about it. To me, I could see why, the say the Tea Party, who would be supporting Menace, Rob Menace, and even those supporting Hollis, would be upset about that. What happened? What happened to the convention? I don't.
I think they just decided to do away with them over the years. I think they were fraught with controversy. You had a lot of people that didn't agree with the conventions. They were probably expensive to put on. And you had a lot of folks ignoring the decision anyway by the delegates. So I think they just decided to discontinue them and to focus more on things like this RLC, which was really run by a lot of people within the state Republican Party. Sure. And I think that's something where people can come together. You don't have divisiveness. You just have more of a, pro-Republican event as opposed to something that is going to split one faction against another. What was interesting at the RLC, you had Manus and Paul Hollis address the delegates. They were invited to speak as well as Cassidy. So nobody was excluded there among the candidates for Senate.
Mary Landry was
and Reverend Brown. Don't forget Reverend Brown. He's also running. He is going to be a factor in the race, I think. All right, we'll squeeze in one more call. Steve Sabludowsky with us. Jeff Crouere here. Our friend Paul and Kenner joins us. Hey, Paul. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Jeff. Jeepers, I think that David Ballinger ought to get some kind of an award from the Democratic Party, because he is certainly 110% for the Democrats, that's for sure. And they can do no wrong, I can tell. I hear your news come on again, and you refer to it as the update of the news, but of course we know it's a repeat. But it's so sad what they carry. The story you had today about the rescue, that would be much more interesting to New Orleans people than what they talk about. They bring up some subjects that I really question. It's more of a hype than fact. It's said something about, what was it? The name of the hurricane, if it's a male name that the people fear more.
Right. Ridiculous.
News?
I agree with you. Ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just like to mention again, I've mentioned it before, and people may get tired of hearing it, but You know, it's drivers that cause bunching, which causes slowdowns in the traffic. It's the drivers doing this, not the traffic. Everybody can make a space ahead of them. It's up to them to do that. And when you got a space, people can merge and traffic can flow. But when they bunch up, then the traffic slows and stops. And, you know, it's just, I don't know, they don't quite perceive how traffic can flow if they would just leave space for people to change lanes or merge.
Well, you know, that's an interesting point, and I was just thinking about that Causeway incident, Paul, and folks must have been not tailgating, because let's just say that happened and people were tailgating on the Causeway, there could have been a massive pileup. But fortunately, I think people were keeping their proper spacing, and they were able to stop in time, get out of their vehicles, and help bring this motorist back up from the lake, as well as his rescuer.
That's a long ways down off that bridge.
Yes, yes it is, especially when you're holding onto a rope.
Maybe the people that go on the bridge, and you did it for years, they're used to this when they close one lane down when it's foggy.
Right.
They're used to it, and then they make them maintain a space when it's one lane.
Right.
So I think maybe they're a little bit educated about space between vehicles.
Yeah, and they usually have the flashing signs, no tailgating, and they have the police there monitoring that. But what's interesting is
flashers on I-10.
Yeah, there you go. That's an idea. Maybe we need to do more as far as educating drivers. By the way, Paul, my son just took his driver's test, passed overwhelmingly, and approved by not only the written test but the driving test. So we got one more good driver out there. All right, Steve, we mentioned him earlier. Let's squeeze him in quickly. He's our good friend. He's a Senate candidate. He's not going to be ignored. His name, Reverend Brown. Hey, Reverend, good morning, sir.
How you doing?
All right, my friend.
Oh, good. And good. Good morning to you, guys.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Reverend.
I don't know if you read my email I sent you, but I guess you read them every now and then. But I sent you an email yesterday, like, you know, heaping praise upon your leadership, Jeff.
Oh, thank you, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you. I never had a friend, and your guest can attest to that was so fair and balanced and news. I mean, when you disagree with somebody, at the same time, as long as they are mutual and respectful, you are open to hear their views. I sent out a press release letting the press know that they were really biased. You were not doing the March of Color thing, even though you were back in Mary Landry, you was not a biased person. You was open up to all ideas and views. And man, you can't get no better than that. So basically what I said in my writing was that Dr. King would be proud of you. If he was living today, he'd be very old, but he would be proud of you, how your journalist style are. Really, it would.
Well,
really showing what democracy in news and broadcasting really is. And that you're very rare, Jeff. You really are. You might think I'm just saying that because you're my friend, but I got enemies will tell you that you're more fair than the average person that's on the air.
Well,
definitely more fair than Bill O'Reilly and Sean. You know what I'm saying?
Listen, all I can say is thank you. I mean, that's high praise. I appreciate that. And I continue to strive to do that, Reverend. That's my motto. And, you know, you're always welcome on the program. Your views are important. Others' views are important. And that's how we run this show. And I appreciate you for recognizing that, for your comments. Means a lot. So thank you. That's Reverend Brown. And always got some interesting things to say, and we appreciate his kind words this morning. One more, Steve. Let's go to our friend Russ in Slidell. How you doing, Mr. Russ?
Good morning, Jeff. Y'all were talking about the car going off the bridge. I just wanted to quickly say that I keep a spring-loaded punch in my air conditioning vent, and in case somebody goes in the water, I can jump in the water and punch their window out and pull them out. You know, electric windows are supposed to fall when they hit the water, but they don't always do that. And you're not going to be able to open your door up because of the pressure of the water. Once your vehicle hits the water, because of the pressure, the vehicle has to equalize, which means you have to sit there while the vehicle fills up with water, and most people panic, and they're not going to be calm enough to be able to, they're not going to think to roll down their window. A lot of women don't, and those 2 girls or 3 girls that went in the water over the last few months,
right?
That might have been what happened unless they were unconscious. But I do keep a spring-loaded punch, and I've given a few away to girls that I know have to cross the lake. And I'm very fearful of going across the water when I have kids in the car, because they're going to have to be rescued first.
Well, you make a good point, Russ, and that's a great idea for folks. It just seems that the problem is on that South Bend span where almost all these incidents have occurred. So I think there's something to the fact that guardrail is lower and makes that a more dangerous journey going south on the causeway. So
it is, but it can happen. We've got so much water around us.
Sure.
Living out here, it can happen anywhere, and you just don't know when somebody's going to run into you, and you're just going to be forced into the water. So I just wanted to make that point. That
good point.
Spring-loaded punches are only $10. You can get them at any Home Depot, and it's good to keep in the car. It's a safety tool. It'll knock the window out immediately when you press it up against the window.
Great advice. Great advice. And also, you had the gentleman who actually did go over. He happened to have a life vest in his truck, and that could have been crucial in saving his life. So, Steve, we had on the heroes this morning from the Causeway Rescue. It was really great to interview them, and very amazing story of their heroism in saving that motor. Steve, thank you, my friend. Appreciate it. It's Bayoubuzz.com for more information. Quick time out, more ringside coming your way. WGSO. We'll be right back.